Godsking here. Welcome to a different form of For Honor and as well tier list. Haven't been to this video in a minute, it'll be good to go and pop back into it. As you see by the title, I'm going to be ranking all of the For Honor characters from weakest to strongest in realistic form, or a possible better, more short title, realistically ranking the For Honor characters. Obviously, it's an obvious, but it makes different tiers I'm going to go over. I'm going to be considering all realistic capabilities of these people in a dual or general battle sense perspective, aka ranking them by their default designs, their weapons, their capabilities, all that. Now, unlike mixed bag and like the For Honor meta, I like to say that I'm a very big connoisseur of history, weapons, martial arts, different things like that. Not a heavy like veterinar understanding of it. I like to say any from a category of things that have been basis or inspiration for Honor that I'm in depth in knowledge of is decently in history and different templates for different things, for not only characters, the inspiration, the cultures, and I've taken a lot of greater in-depth knowledge and taken all different forms of different not only opinions of very much, I would say, knowledgeable titans of history, and especially the opinion of Raven Knight. But there's obviously a few different arguments that I have made, in my mind for where you can see others scaling to, and obviously it's going to be in a obviously tiered pit for pit thing, but a lot of characters have the same maybe possibly argument for where they could stand, as I'm going to be talking about multiple things, and the criteria is obviously if their weapon is a sensible battlefield grand scope dual weapon. Is it sensibly not only to be equipped in a different variety of weapons, range, quickness, effectiveness, the different argument for combatment and skill, and any possible stretch of the imagination of what these characters could scale to, right? I guess if you want to take it from a power scale perspective, in their category of like mix, practitioner of their weapons, armor, style, anything of that sort, very much, skill is going to be the biggest hefty thing, and just if how they are, what they can do, and anything of that sort is a sensible, strong thing to do and or have in the midst of battle, stuff like that. So I hope I made my criteria pretty self-explanatory and sufficiently understandable. But besides that, kind of going to talk about the tiers. Tactically fodders is people who have no possibility of carrying out a great deal in the battlefield, will get put down by an arrow. Any sufficient, more armored, more practically effective warrior will put them out of commission, and they are absolutely a dimwad for coming to the battlefield the way they are, and they have no argument to get past the greater crossroads frontier of a battlefield and all that, right? So yeah, just know sufficiently capable is pretty much people that not only have a great strong sense of weapon, possible range, armor, mixed stylistic capability, some different demonstrous like physical stats over possibly another person, things of that sort, right? They're standardized, they're solid, but then general beast is the people that would actually be considered to be pretty proficient, high standing, very much the pinnacle for the standard, possibly different accolade for a warrior that actually is somewhat of a keen, strong form warrior and actually of knowledge of the battlefield, right? But even with their beastfulness, might have things that pull back from them being set in stone to be added to the battlefield, whereas pretty much the highest standing, the highest echelon of people, I'm talking they have the greatest arguable weapons, greatest form of armor, greatest sentiment of defense, the strongest capabilities to be had, are very efficient, shit like that, right? But without further ado, I'm going to get into all of it, and Ultimate Warrior will be explained, obviously, in the end of it for who I believe is ultimately the true war machine out of everybody in For Honor. So, I'm going to start from the bottom, and starting with Virtuosa, even though for her mixed time period for where she would be taken from, being a mixed Italian Renaissance, she would be fine in different squabbles, be a very effective duelist. Obviously, it has been talked about to death that the rapier is not a battlefield weapon. It is a dual common weapon. It is not a weapon for war. It would be possibly a secondary to third option if you really needed it. How she goes about fighting in game, even though it's cool, flashy, sonic sway, she would be tactically fodder against anybody of greater significance. So just know Like, that's just objectively bad in every case of the way. There's no argument for her to even be any higher. Armor is bad. She has nothing of greater significance to be had, and she can get very much fucked up using just default base armor, which is what we're considering again. Khotun, cousin of Kublai, granddaughter of Genghis Facer. I'll put in General Beast for now, not only because she has very solid, sturdy, very much impenetrable seeming general baseline armor. She is dual-wielding swords that are the same compare, which is not entirely terrible, but it's not always going to be the best adept thing. Now, there were dual wielders in comparison, right? In the case of not only the Mongolian different, tides of war and warriors of her makes different comparison of time, but the difference is that their dual wield were in concession with something and was more like backup replacements and wouldn't be on the same form of y-axis of usage, how she uses them, even though it is a competitive mix, dueling mix up and, correspondence of different scissor scoring like essences. It is not used in a very much more sensible, fashion, where she uses it in chronodirectional, very swap kind of mixture, where she's more or less, even though she could do a great deal of damage to people who are not as much armorly, in or very much to be said skillful. There's every argument that anybody that has as much armor and or has a more solid weapon and or skill to be taken could outdo her, as her form of not only sword tricks and dueling is not a very strong, sensible way of throwing out blades, and even though it has a good sweep, mix of possible movement of somebody's feet, if you're using great range, poke, stab, and she has a great sense of defense. How she goes about her defense with her iconic running all guard could be a great way to cruise and score for somebody, but in reality, no one with as much effective armor or true greater skill is allowing that to happen. So again, she's here for now. She could be, lowered in a tier, but I think for now, it's just definitive that she's not only a great armored person, but the way that she fights is not the most tactically precise, and her mix-up with not only the take of like her swords and her kicks is a great thing. She doesn't self-explanatory telegraph, but there's every level of like how she throws out her blades is too far back, too early held stylistically, not the most credible solid essence of fighting. It's kind of just too whoppy-doo whimsical, it's too fantasy arguably. So yeah, it just wouldn't be the best tactic to pull, but just taking everything else in consideration, she should be very strong. Sohei is a mixed toss-up. He has a good possible war weapon, the Kamiari Spear, but the rest of his other, 6 weapons is very mixed to be used. It's arguably too much. The person that Sohei has basis for, even though it has mixed tail of being a real actual claim warrior, right, was not the most actually physically adept, formidable, and like formidable for actual grand scope combat sense. Yeah, he slayed a bunch of different warriors, but the way Sohei is built, he's obviously canonically credited as being the most tallest character in the game, taller than Shigoki, that has the credit of being either from a 6'8 to 6'10 individual, big ass dude. Sohei is overly large, like he's massive. He's very slow. He has a solid geared up sense of armor, but he has a lot of visible weak points. He would be doing too much level of dragging himself back to throw out his weapons. It's fast in game, but it's because it's a video game. In a realistic historical setting, he would not be good, and if he just uses Kamiari Spear and use whatever good defense he had, and if he possibly, got disarmed, or, his Kamiari Spear got broken, because it is half wood as well, there's a great level of in the mixture that not only is it not the most solid form of mixture, but again, because of how much weapons he has and the luggage, and again, the mix actual provide of historical consistency to say who he's based on was an actual full-fledged greater fame warrior that still got all around defeated from a person of minimalistic capabilities, and a lot of the content and different things is shaky. To conclude, at the end of the day, how Sohei does his fighting style from For Honor's form of presence and choreography seems like a guy that even though is very keen and different credible foreshowing and capabilities, he mainly outdoes a lot of people from the fantastical element of being a build different pillar of might, mysticism, all different tales of spiritual enlightenment, taking souls, Zenkai, grabbing people with one hand, and I do think just in the physical bout he should be starting a lot of people. So I'll give him possibly this, but there's every argument that he has a lot of things that will pull him back. Varangian should be reasonable general beast, right? Varangians across multiple boards of history with armor were very much capable in depth units, right? Varangian guards, mercenaries, soldiers for hire, fought in multiple different high pinnacle wars and different foreshowing. The Varangians armor from head to toe, and not only a great mixture of solid gray iron and mixed with chainmail, has a good, strong, decent ranged weapon in this axe, has a very formidable shield, and has a great sense of very simplistic but strong in every sense of the way combat and fighting style, regardless of the character, is very one note, the epitome of mid and unlikable, right? Absolutely fucking annoying. This character still very much, right, outshines and outclasses any form of possible person for right now. Mixed argument. The only argument that Godsking has possibly over is Mix having some better, greater grain of mixed armor and things, but there's a decent sense of weaknesses that she could exploit, and her weaponry would not be as much easy to get through the chainmail or greater cut at it the same as she has a shield. She doesn't, and I already explained why Godsting's fighting style is not the most strong. So yeah, just no. Ocelotl is fortunately going to be a mixed toss-up between, kind of depending on who he fights, but I would even say that the rapier has a little bit better argument to best Ocelotl. This could be a very contingent fight, but mainly because Ocelotl's armor would be in the grand scheme of a lot of people Stone Age. It's not very formable like actual usage of weapons. It's not very strong strategically sentiment of real good usage comparatively against a lot of people. Ocelotl's armor is a mix between different token of like leather, obviously different shards and different take of like jewelry. He has obviously his iconic creative Jaguar, aka what Ocelotl translates to, Jaguar warrior garbs and setup man's built like Tai Lung, and a different very brutal, vicious, righteous fury. Telotucha, Guardian himself should very much stand strong in his different era, but in comparison to others, he's lacking on the armor. His weapons, even though a good decent combo with the axe club and mixed with the hard shard spear, he's not the most strongest in greater sense and offer duel in a grand scope warfare, even though Aztecs did have their ways to try to combat different greater fly out the handles wild escapades of battle from range and different things. He, using base equipment, does not have that, and a lot of different different Aztec bouts were running at each other, skirmishes, head-on collides, just throwing all different form of different ballistic hands. This shawty Retrouza should outstyle and pretty much push in boots through his whole thing, and her weapon would be more effective than his. The only mixed argument is that skill-wise, Ocelotl does have a lot going for him, but he obviously wouldn't have hyper armor the same. He has a lot more openings than her. She has a superior armor in a class of a warrior, so I just think that from a war perspective, they're both bad, but in a dueling mixed connotation, she would be of a better sentiment of capabilities than Ocelotl. Now Fira, I would argue, it's a kind of mixed toss-up between, she's very decently fine, she has a good shield, she has a good weapon in the mace, and her armor is decently effective, but it's not as much efficiently done in a sentiment for she could really strongly greater clash with the best of the best. What I mean with this, the best most solidly described, most concisely and properly, as a brother be prone to do. Simply put, that even though she really doesn't have necessarily the best high clean caliber armor. Her armor is decent in mixed foreshowing of what she has in her skill. Now, her skill from a gameplay perspective is very crazy. She's a whole luchadores, if that's even a proper, term. But Shawty would not be able to do that a lot of time in the battlefield. Like in a dueling scenario, it could be very trippy, but different from a battlefield stuff. Doing all them flips, even with her possibly unlimited cardio, it's OD. It would not work the same way. You can't do all that stuff. It is very much inhuman to do some of the different mixes that she does. And even with the argument that she could pull some of her different wrestling, gymnast, slinging, daredevil, maneuvers on people, it would not work on anyone a lot more bigger than her. Different supply of shit. We try to use historically accurate, even though there wasn't actually, for what I know, any strong actual accounting of any female Muslim Arab warriors fighting, right? In the case of these different wars, there is the fact that because even though no sexist shit, she is a woman, she couldn't do a lot of that unless they were a man or a woman of similar size, and I don't really see her being able to do that to anyone big and armored. And even though in skill simplisticness and speed, she could outdo Sohei. Sohei is very big. He has, again, a lot more greater A, decent sentiment of armor, big metal, compacted together, big ass refrigerator. And he has a more superior weapon, especially in range. So I think he would just pretty much hack away, crack out her stuff, and a lot of what she can do with her mace would be very much prone to be most pinned dead on like his head, his legs, his arms, which are decently armored or should be decently sturdy. I think that she would be annoying, and the fight would probably have to be a hard diff for her to win, but I see Sohei winning, right? But again, that's what she would be. Medjai, one of my favorite Egyptians. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, like, out of all the For Honor characters, mixed take with like the Roman Centurion and Gladiator, this nigga's ancient. This is an Egyptian, right? With armor that is not the most really big tack for different warfare in greater instances. Like Egyptians had, for the different time, commonly decently affordable finances, and I would say a decent grasp to how to make different occasional strong armor, and that's shown in his greater variants, but using his default where he has more custom to jewelry with the mix like chain guards, metal, obviously the shoulder and arm bracers, right? He doesn't have a helmet. His face is exposed. His whole stomach is exposed. Like, the man mix no homo might look sexy, right? But this is not a true warrior. This guy's getting shot down by an arrow. He's getting bodied. I would only argue mainly for Oceloto because she has a mixed argument for the better armor. Because, like, here's the thing. Medjai is like pros. He's big, right? Like, he's 6'5", 6'6". He's big, right? He's decently intimidating. His weapon is tactically, in every sense of the way, dysfunctionable, arguably. Like, the whole splitting of the weapon, using the logic For Honor, can make for a decent versatility, but the double axe, or the steel cold big heavy Pomac staff does not really change that much. And even though he has a great sense of range and mixed up in dualism, he most likely would get bested by Virtuosa most of the time, only because she has a greater, more efficient practical armor. She has a better mixed usage of weapon, and a lot of could be said for Medjai as more or less kind of wacky, very much heavily full-fledged historically fantasy character. Like, he doesn't make sense. You could poke a lot of holes, and not only the argument for how his weapon, the Pomac staff / axes, work, and even entire sense of his whole being, the way he fights. Like, there's a decent level of competitive, mixed arguments that, because of how wild of a swinging usage his shit is, it would definitely big clamp on some different people's stuff. But not only does he expose Sobek, he's doing a lot of twist, and it's been literally joked about to death that doing twist in most different convictional fighting is entirely suicide. It makes no sense. It's tactically very much Romanian. It doesn't make any actual, strategic, practitioner, any essence of actually military grade A sense. It is one of the biggest fumbles of actually understanding the sweet science that is form of not only collage, of different steel, no matter of like technique and anything. So if he actually would try to do that and just try to ooga boonga his way, he's going to get not only cut down, split up, danced around, mixed up way more greater, and there's so many capabilities to outdo his weapon. And like I said before, without going on a whole skippable cutscene, spinning around the way Medjai does and doing all these different fling swirl of his shit, even if there's characters that have similar bows to doing it, they do it in a way more tactically strong, wise, actually credible essence with it. And unlike Afira, who has a shield and like she's a lot more fast and nimble, that her mobility can actually comparably, be actually sensible and as well be actually compatible against people. It's more comparably, better suited. While Medjai, again, with any other character in mixed argument doing a bunch of fucking ballerina spins, is entirely, in any sense of the way, not only the biggest detriment to you, it is stupid, it is a downright sin to the morgue, or for him, the duat. It is a dispose of any argument of greater skill and poke of intelligence to do so. And even though I love Medjai, this is my main, I haven't played for her in a minute, so, I should get back into it. This nigga just retarded if you think that's gonna work. So, I know he's big, I know he got a better weapon, but again, armor, skill, there's even this argument for historical time. Again, her weapon isn't, a good field battle weapon, but like none of the people in technically fought are most likely gonna make it to the battlefield. They can make it to the battlefield. They're decently armored, they got decent equipment, they got ways to get around, like they're just not good, not only duelists most likely against anyone of greater skill. They have terrible armor and don't have good weapons. So no. Pirate, self-explanatory. Gun, most I needed to reload, right? In this sense, another infinite fucking bullets. Has a good sword handle, decent sense of skill, has a good form of, armor take. To be fair, she does not have a helmet, right? And doesn't have a greater, take of equipment, different things. To mix bag say she could greater get around, but there's more effective ways to get out of dodge with these things, and the fact of mainly like range, she has the better range. She has obviously a flintlock in the case of the standard, 17th to 18th century. So yeah, Kaioshin. I would argue. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of people mad at me with this, but I think he's kind of mixed into with Medjai. I mainly say this because his, first of all, armor is terrible. Like, he barely has the greatest sense of metal armor in default. He's technically half blind, and even though I know, like, in the final lore, that's not really acceptable, critique for him, because, he's a blitz, of the wind, man's cold as ice when it comes down to the sauciness. The dude to build different swordsmen, pseudo kenshi anime sense of like, sufficiently build different class of a warrior. But not only is this obviously talking about realism, he can't pull off historical fantasy shit. His stance not only is straight pulled out of fiction, but is virtually impossible and non-considerate of the actual absolute ways to body that, not only in game, but different configurement of different ways to absolutely, in every sense of the way, disaffect from any possible delusional aspect of thinking that just swinging your sword in a form of Ninjago, spin jitsu style is gonna help. It wouldn't even work formally that way. And he would just be flinging about not even a practical weapon. Like, obviously, he's wielding a katana that's a mix with a wooden shaft to like a cane. But not only is that not a strong battlefield weapon, but is a weapon that isn't armored with any possible greater element, like even another person utilizing a katana that's strong. And obviously, a katana, even though it was mixed different occasions, wielded by different samurai ronin, it was not a main proficient practical mains usage in Battlefield. It was a secondary to third weapon. Most samurai would be using greater effective range, use bows, or if they needed to use a different ground for actually competitive pit for pit, very proud, sturdy, longevity, different clashing and whacking with niggas, would better practically put forth a kanabo. The three main styles of different samurai weaponries and capabilities was either a naginata or spear, right? Utilizing a kanabo, bow and arrow, and maybe at the highest stretch, right, you could argue them using like a nodachi. But even then, it really would depend. And a katana and other aspects of that is really depending on the occasion, to be only utilized at different mixtures of horseback and other occasions. And unless it's strictly duels, a katana is not the scenario. So it was just duels. Again, I could see maybe Kyle Shin getting around Meja. I think Meja just has a better, run of armor and tied with his height, even though his weapon is completely bullshit too. Like, both of them have bullshit escapades to even be able to stand where they are. You got this juggernaut of Egypt with this literal fucking, shonen jump ass fucking samurai here. Like, the fact of the matter is that he has a better, more possible perceivable weapon to be used. So yeah, like, you just should even like stand to him. Griffin though, I would say has every mixed argument to be contingent with Varangian here. He has a good weapon to Barty. He has good range. He has solid armor. He doesn't have a helmet. He has different leather mix, different pauldrons and garbs. He's very decently tall, capable, using mixed hold and cross, and any possible man behind, Griffin could be very much capable. You know what I'm saying? Wise in the visual. I think we get past a lot of these people from his better techniques and capabilities, right? And can utilize a lot of his different mixture of techniques and skills more effectively. Varangian, because of having a shield and better supply of armor, will be the reason why he gets put down. But yeah, like, there's every argument to very much considerably say that he should be very much strong here. And you can maybe try to argue he might outlast Varangian, but her armor will just be too much sufficiently outdoing of him, even though his, ironclad armor would definitely be a hard time. It's more the fact that, like, she has a shield, he has a very much more greater effective axe-like weapon, but he has a very open weakness, and that's no helmet. So yeah, Warmonger should be right here, contingent against the case of Pirate, depending on how you see, the bullet's greater effective hard pressing against her. So Warmonger not only has a very solid, sly, very, in every creative way, a nice definitive weapon that is not only very much gruelly effective, could lance outdo anybody, is a better, more strong custom of what a rapier style of fencing clashing is, will mix with her armor, even though her obvious fucking, iconic fame Apollyon Vega-esque claws and different manners of fighting is not very much tactically reasonable, and even sensible is absolutely fucking ludicrous to come to, especially in different occasions when she could do it. But in different occasions with mixing it up and different, clashing of different mixed body and steel, she could very much use this in concession. She has way greater element of armor than these people. Her mixed weaknesses is some occasion different parts of the body. Obviously, is not much greater decked out armor, but she's decked out from head, arms, shoulders, everything. Pretty much decked out from head to toe, knees and toes, face out. But her main glaring weakness is hypothetically that this is hair coming out of her helmet. Like, that's automatically just a terrible functionality for something. So that could get pulled, that could fuck her up in different, like, clothing setup and shit. But don't get it twisted, like, I'm not entirely thinking that it's like a big stinging, press against her in different confines of battle. But if you think that, her armor is resilient enough to push past, the gun of Pirate and greater foreshowing, and then same time simultaneously, because of her greater skill, beat Pirate, she could be over. I will say for now, I think that Pirate has a mixed argument to beat her, but again, it really depends on how you feel, right? Definitely might take more than one shot to beat her, but that could be very critical. But yeah, Zanhu, I will say, we'll just get right here. Good weapon, decent solid armor, decent dual skills, mix of martial arts, you know what I'm saying? could more effectively, more to finally best these people, but these people have the better mixed argument of weaponry, capability, like range. So, yeah, that's where they go. Hitokiri. We'll say, yeah, right there. Like, Hitokiri, considering, the pitcher is like, woman or man, I think will still be there because it's a good weapon. Very strong person to be carrying this weapon, especially a lot of time one-handed, right? But the way it makes the Hitokiri fights is not the most strong in different form of fighting. This is a more kind of brawler, whoppy-doo, scrappy person. This is not a very fame, formal, definitive warrior in different clash and threads. This is not the general standard for mixed talk of Vanguard, for the record of obviously the counting of like a samurai. The weapon is strong, but was usually a different basis, especially because this is a way more bigger version of the axe that actually, samurai used. Was used with a shield. So, like, there's a mild level of, like, because she doesn't have that, wouldn't be good. Like, if Hitokiri had a shield, then she could, especially with better armor, to mix bag say, she could be a lot more higher, but that's mainly there because she doesn't really stand that better ground to outland Hitokiri, right? Activity in the game is all tied to the bitch-made, absolutely irrefutably inflammable, level of rage boost, right? Where Shawty is living hyper armor heavy. Hito bitch, Hito cancer is just plagued about in the whole forest show and is just able to fling about heavy grade A steel and just Jingshan every person that comes, her way. And it's just unfun, right? It's unbearable. But even in flammable like craziness, I say that fear gets around because of more effective armor, a better style fighting, and I just feel like more effectively will wear her down. She also just has better stuff. Hitokiri says his mass, his big accent is not only strong in armor and capability in comparison to Zanhu, would probably get a lot of the time sticked up and could get highly outdued to the point where different, more solid, different utilization and correspondence of mix up of range and very heavy tacking at the body. I could actually now more or less see how Zanhu could more efficiently kind of splice around Zanhu and dance around her, akin to Raiden be doing Metal Gears. Like, she would get entirely outdone in every credit of the way. She's obviously over the knees people because she has a more strong caliber weapon, mixed presentation of armor and balance of being very powerful, strong, and mixed height difference, but you could very much argue that what Zanhu's going to do to Hitokiri may be, Virtuosa could do, but I would argue that Zanhu's weapon is a more effective sword. It's a more strong battlefield sword, and the position and inspiration for Zanhu is a more capable, accounted warrior, so yeah, that's how I feel. Yormi could be very high with a great weapon, but I'll be honest, I do think they're very low. Not only because their armor is absolutely fucking shit. This nigga look homeless, right? Is exposed way too goddamn much. But the hammer is very much strong, but it can be greater utilized because these weapons are either more stronger and better. They have more different, like, competitive mixed pit for pit presence and possibly understanding to outdo him. And he's just very shit when different collides and greater exposure to battle come, and even with his weapon having a lot of ways to literally batter and maul away at somebody, he won't be really laying the smack down the same way other characters above him can to comparatively different people, and different relativity to just having better strong sense of not only armor, weapons, capabilities, sign of skill, and Jormungandr's skill in a lot of ways that fights, even though it's not titled without any tick of actual, strategicness or capability of fierceness. In the grand scope, this nigga just ain't really like that, and even with Medjai's very much undeniably trash level of acts to be made to tie together different moveset and or utilization can more bear them because of range and better acceptable armor that are in category for different argument of defense and balance of resourceful and capable, standing toe to toe would more effectively outdo and eviscerate. I feel like Jormungandr, because just giving Medjay the best benefit of the doubt, his Pomac should be more effectively able to, full Spinaroo, Clopper, and, best said with the axe, chop him down, wear him down, outdo him, and the only possible danger that Medjay has, like if Jormungandr goes straight for the head, but with him being way bigger than him, having a solid ground of no defense, and again, should be able to fully, clobber him, in multiple forms, and clobber him in different ways, different mix-ups, and trying to crack at the defense, suck up at the, slug boards and different shit like that. Sorry, some my throat pause, no diddy. Damn. I've been talking for so long, I have some water. But again, the best concretely conclude, right? Again, the slap up, the clobbering, multiple essences being a clobbering, right? In different setup, I believe is possible. Moving on, we have Black Prior, K. Vortigern, who should be self-explanatory to be, would argue, could be very much here. I think I'm just going to put him here for now. Like, he has a very undeniably unimpenetrable, impregnable defense with this fucking shield. Even if you want to argue the whole Waffle House, right, all guard is very kind of wacky. It's obviously not realistic. If that could ever be possible, he would entirely slop and slaughter anybody that comes in mix. He has great defense regardless. He has great different mix-ups of different, like, not only pressing, pushing past people, has great different means of mobility, setup is very effective with different killing essence with the case of this not only shield and sword combo, but can be very much in every sense of the way one of the most killer, deadly Vatos on the battlefield effectively because of this. And even with him having a low stance of armor, his shield, mixed style and expertise, and the capability to be able to have better grasp and timing and edging out different people, especially in different, cut off, the space and mix up with people, would very much cleave his way to the edge of victory. I feel like a lot of the time Varangian will be the only person to do a greater challenge because she have a decently strong shield, not as big. He got a whole scutum basically. I know that's a fucking whatever the actual name is, a full, like, because they both have a different element of like the Viking set medieval times shield of being, the triangle mixed essence of, like, in truth, akin to a Roman, not only gladiator like a Murmillo or a actual centurion's scutum, but obviously is that, half off creative, like, shield that, you can pull from your back using different correspondence, a mixture of cable cracking and banging out with different people, like motherfuckers use flails with this shield, shit like that. But actually, Shaolin, Max Main, my favorite characters, but it's undeniable, you trash, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the bow staff is a very cool weapon and it was mixed different possible usage and different training for, the battlefield, but even as being a monkey staff, it's not a good staff. His mix-up capabilities and proficiencies is not very strong. His bracers and different mixed matter of possible armor would not be the best in comparison, and even Oceloto, being a mixed, like, ancient furry, is just objectively better than him. His style of fighting is not very strong for the battlefield. It is not efficient shit. Even if the argument for his martial arts and different capabilities and mixture of the bow staff would give these people a problem, they should all not only in different arguments for height disparity, weaponry, and take a mixed, more arguable, better defense, should beat him more times than not. And I think there's even a layer, because, like, there's contingent, like, with Ocelot, what is better, like, dual wielding versus, like you say, technically one-off mixed dual wielding Afro Samurai level of stance that Kaioshin has against him. But I would say his weapons are a lot more effective than the case of this man Oceloto in mixed talk mixture. I say because not as much armor. This man is just wearing general garb. Just see some decent tech of some level of trying to have some level of craftsmanship and durability. Ocelotl is just objectively a better mixed hawk of a pedestal for even, yes, a tactically insignificant character, but still has some little grounds for cracking with somebody, even if his grounds is very low standing. This nigga Shaolin just should not be on the battlefield. Warrior Monk or not, he's just objectively not good. The only way I can see him having an argument to beat him is like if he bonged this nigga with the metal halves of like his stuff and like gave him a great case of concussion. Really started, I guess, more than what he actually in character does, which is twists and turns. Donatello rocking with the greatest slyness, effectiveness of the bow staff, really giving his monkey Z, monkey do, type timing. He would never be able to credibly crack off at a dude's head in different like battering mixed bow, stab twirls and flinging off the different stances and different shit. He can't full Jacoby his way out of this in different correspondence of the bow staff. He can't actually sincerely, fully, I would say, with his bow staff, jade around these various aspects of people. Like Ocelotl, better weapons, better mixed ground of armor, better weaponry, and more stylistic, I say, more decent stuff, because Shaolin has so much openings. Jormungand has a better weapon, even though he has just as much openings, even worse. I mean, the nigga don't even have shoes. He has a better weapon. Ocelotl, in comparison to this dude, right, is obviously a lot more, maybe you could say, armor in comparison for him, but Medjai has a lot more distinctly out there credible mixed take of armor, and as well has a better weapon, including his size. Virtuoso should be self-explanatory, right? So regardless how you feel about it, Shaolin should not beat anybody up here. Like, he's just bottom of the low for multiple reasons. His weapon is the main stinging thing. It's just bad. It's not a good weapon. It's not a battlefield weapon. There's no accounting, I think, ever of someone actually fully utilizing a bow staff in combat without fucking dying, without getting wasted. So even if, like, again, lower in standing, they have better weapons, better capabilities, Ocelotl, Medjai, big ass, like, it's all there, right? Nuxia, I would argue, is this right here. Like, the weapons are not mainline stylistically strong, battlefield weapons. The hook sword's very capable, and her mixed traps and mix-ups are very cool and crazy, but I would say the weaponry, bare minimum, is a lot more strong and sensible with Ocelotl. There's a better, I feel like, collection of moves and stronger usage in them. And even though Nuxia, translating to female warrior, Nuxia Nuswa, is a very capable person and should be over Shaolin, I don't really see her sticking out that much more greater to beat others. And I just don't think she has strong grounds for her capabilities there, like, at all. Then JJ, even in his old age, I think with the Guandao, how he stylistically fights, is a very effective, sufficient warrior. I think he could be very much a general beast. Now, the reason why he's not higher is his old age. Tied with the fact that even though he has a decent grasp of like armor, a lot of it is mixed like metal company pauldrons of more leather, like case of like wood and different aspects. Again, like the metal coming together with different leather, right? Is not bad. That's maybe for his standing as like a mix, possibly retired, coming back, reestablished like general of command, right? But the metal coming with the leather and wood, it's just not the most efficient. He's wearing the general sanctuary like garb sense. It seems like more of a high imperial warrior, like that's coming for a visit. He just doesn't really seem like a strong war general. There's other outfits, especially where it makes him young, that would make him pretty much seem like actually Guan Yu, like historically, or a myth. But he's kind of backpedaled. The reason why he's still up here, though, is, again, he has a very good weapon. He's very sly, fast, effectively a veteran killer. This man is a unk of war, so he knows what he's doing. And I just feel like weaponry-wise, style, even with all his armor, even he doesn't have a helmet and doesn't have the most strongest stance of things, that he would be more functionally better standing, even again with the metal coming with the leather and wood. The leather is not bad. It's just without repetition, it just in leather tides. Obviously, it's not the best, but it's more than just having whatever off clothes and bad things. Garbs a little taken of metal, or even if they are better mixed armor, they're not the best armor, or just having not as much more efficient weapons. These people just have better armor, better weapons, skill, shit like that. Right? Tiandi, Heaven and Earth. I am going to bet decently here. Good armor, martial arts full showing, caliber with the Dow, skills and accolades. Even though the whole like water is funny, it's not a very strong form of maneuver. But if he can be decently that fast and mix up with his shit, I would like to say that he could very decently outdo anyone below him very effectively. Only problem would be like the size disparity, but he has a helmet, good armor, good strong feel and look of himself, and yeah, he should just outdo. Aramusha as a Ronin, double sworded, even though not entirely inaccurate. Two double sided, mixed look and how he fights, not entirely most strong feel. He doesn't have the best armor. And maybe because of weapons I would put him over, but yeah, I think it's kind of a mixed double-sided thing where it's like he should beat him, but he's better opening, but they're both the same where they're wearing, for the grand scope talk, rags. Like this nigga broke. Sword for hire coming up. This nigga has gotten tarnished from being a samurai and got no great collective means to be anything more great standing out. He has a bad headgear. He doesn't have a true helmet. It's not made out of metal, obviously. This is a fucking, straw hat helm. He has bad take of not only armor and capabilities, and it's mainly because of his sword and mixed techniques and many different viable martial arts skill, but man, just it's bad. It's not most good. Shaman, absolutely garbage. The only reason why she's over is possibly a better mix-up of garments take and mix a more capable mix-up of weapons. Trash, bad, self-explanatory, D1 tweaker. I don't have anything more to say. Highlander, I would say, is very much arguably capable to be here. Mainly I say it because, again, doesn't have a helmet, has decent openings, but has a great mix of garment, leather, technical metal, has a very great large weapon, and obviously there's a lot of things in gameplay that he does that is not a very strong form of fighting. Like, it's objectively been critiqued to death that it's not very sensible, right? Go-Go Danny has entirely, surgically dismantled, while a lot of his shit just doesn't make any sensible sense, right? But that, inconsistency of, viableness in his kit or not, I think the fact is that we try to give him the best benefit of doubt in competent form and not just say that, like, Highlander is some screaming lunatic, right? He's not moving like Viking fucking Scully or something. That he does have some tick of capable preciseness with his long, more effective, efficient weapon. He's goodly tall. He's strong in stature. I think he would be able to, a lot of the time, just clack, dominate, mix up. He has a better use of his weapon. It's a lot more bigger than what a formal claymore is, and he should be very strong to utilize it in half sorting or full sorting, back sorting. He should be stylistically fine. There's an argument that some of these people with better mixed usage of armor could outdo him, and I could see an argument that, like, how he rivals the axe, the Hitokiri could be a problem. This armor for Tiandi is a big problem, and I put this on whoever made his skill in the range, right? Because like this armor, like it's good, but they both have similar like mixed take of armor. That it's a good mix of armor, but not good. Obviously, he has better armor, but it's mainly that. I can kind of see a little bit of like the win con being there, but I mainly think his weapon would outshine. These people not only have a better, stronger form of armor, weaponry, capability, and in mobility and or range and working somebody down. I think it's very much capable to give the go-ahead for them to be this way. So, yeah, that's kind of how I see it, right? But I think that is where mixed Highlander is. But all around, makes the shield not being the most strong. I could see that being the case. I just think the Kamiya Spear, I think objectively, like in history, is just a better weapon than the Claymore, and as well, just like it has a better range. It's also way bigger in game. So yeah, Gladiator. Now, for a warborn sense, in the case of actually being a soldier, Gladiator personality is absolutely fucking trash. The Trident is a terrible, absolutely atrocious weapon, and this shield is not good. It's not big enough. It's not strong enough. I'll give him this though, that in adeptness, skill, and a little bit of armor, leather, different ties and things, and his training comparison to history should be a lot more effectively better. That I think that he would beat everybody else here on a lot of technicalities. I think the only way he can be fucked over is Cerberus. Now Medjai, I think it's contingent because, you know, his size, his decent as much credit of kind of Mike's like, you know, armor. As mainly I say this, the best say is that he's tactically not as much more strong, acceptable occasion of armor. What the fuck is this? I got a random ad on my tier list. Okay, thank God that my recording ain't fucked because I'm not trying to do this again. Anyway, I was trying to say, even not being the most technically big max of, you know, great armor, he has a great case of not only tactically good laying of possibly ways to pit for pit rock against him. Again, it's not the most tactically, with no, again, redundant talk, tactically max good armor, but it's a good take of tactically formably like possible challenge for a Gladiator, especially in the Gladiator games. Everyone else here would either have terrible weapons, not the best showcasing this shit, or their weapons would just be objectively obsolete. Because even if his weapon, right, is terrible from a war perspective, strictly off of duels and who could better do this, he could do better. The Trident and his mix, you know, like his style wasn't a real style. He's a mix of a Retirarius, aka Trident and Net, and Thrax with a short shield and a dagger are a little like, you know, I wouldn't call it bare minimum, like akin to like a greater sense of like knife, but be basically more of like a like hunting knife, hunting like dagger, a squaring like thing, a mixed shorter edge weapon, a curved sword maybe, but and then the kid to like Jack Sparrow. Again, they both have a great sentiment of being strong, proficiently mixed of what they could do, but who has a more max capacity for taking more shit? I would probably gauge more Medjai. His weapon would also be a lot more efficient, but his style could very much be the end of him. So stylistically, Gladiator should win, but again, same argument with Highlander, giving him the better argument for being more stronger, understandably built dude. I would say that, you know, he should win and use his weapon more tactically. I think the argument for him being Virtuoso is if you think that he could use his more effective mix argument in time period, seeming more strong usage of training mixed with duels to best, but I think the Rapier could still outdo the Trident, and she just will always have better armor than all these people. He doesn't really do too much to stick out, so yeah, I think it's just bad for him regardless of the case. Shinobi, not good, not super good. It's only a little bit more higher because of mixed armor talk, skills, and even though the Kusarigama Lavage mixture was not at all a battlefield weapon, this is Japanese intelligence, this is fucking ninja, this is mixed talk of shinobi, and a greater talk weaponry, how it is used in game, and mixed style, how it could be done. You could say it could be a lot more effective, but I think that's the most consistent, more practical take Phil to say. Centurion should be very high end for a reason. I think that he should be very unironically contingent with a fellow general and Miss Magic June, okay? Feng Guang Yu, Shifu of the Wulin, okay? Sensei, teacher, whatever you want to call him, right? But I could also see him getting over Kotun, mainly just from stylistic usage. So I'll actually say that he's there. So it was an obvious, he's very fucking armored. Like, this guy is the ultimate solidification of general, big body, heavyweight, solid, dominating, you know, force in his own right. Like, the dude is literally a Latin form of like heavyweight champion. He's a built dude. He's obviously armored from basically head to toe. His arms are mixed exposed. He has garments and different things on his hands and different things like that. He has a strong, the most effective, you know what I'm saying, from kind of mixed loop-de-loop of not having a helmet or having a helmet that is decent or not the most radically different. He has the most optimal, pretty much full-fledged, whole literal dome head level helmet where he's built like an actual seeming sentinel out this bitch when it comes down to his helmet. The Roman helmet, I'm not gonna act like it's the best credit of Quam helmet, but it's the most adapted, reformed, and standardized helmet. That's the standard. I'm wearing something that fully protects my head, my back, head, all this stuff. Like, he's protected from literally head, crown, back of his neck. The only openings are his ears, but even that's decently protected from the cheek plates. He obviously is armored good up on the body and all that. He's wearing pants, has decent boot leggings and all that. But the big problem is that he only has one short, but for honors, obviously historical fantasy, a lot more longer weapon. And the Gladius wasn't the most shortest, like, toothpick weapon, but it was a kind of akin to like different argument for like getting a hunter's knife, or a argument for the more sufficient, higher soiji, like kind of butcher, like deli half cut knife. It's not like it wasn't effective, but it also wasn't a main strong form battlefield weapon. It was a secondary weapon that they would use in tandem if they needed to do something else or needed to spear front, move in concession with something. It was a weapon that was very strongly used with a scutum, like a gladiator, the Murmillo, a legionary, a praetorian, proud guard, or any person of possible presence of using high standing tie of different things. The Gladius is not a very strong weapon to use by itself. In different duels and clashing, it's fine, but there's a mixed argument that even with the thrust, hack, slash, clock, different effective, CQC, close quarters combat of the weapon, it's not very strong. Also in personality, you could argue Centurion is a little bit of a dome head. The dude's kind of just throwing around all different type of Latin catchphrases, incredibilis, and just doing the most, but giving him the best good faith that he would actually be effective grown up in his actual, status as a general, right? A leader of men. Master yourself, face ass. Centurion, he should be here. It's the weapon and it's the greater closing, and there is ways to close the gap. They also have more sufficient armor. His armor is better, but you could argue the weaponry is better. But I think not because of his armor, cardio, age to mix presume, he should just be better, right? Nabushi Unobugeisha would be very much effectively, because of the Naginata, the mixed decent garments of weapon is not fully fledged armor, the most strong, the best, but it mixed garbs, leather, is technically protected with a wooden helmet and has a decent mask cover. I could see her getting around. She has very effective range, martial arts status and style. She could get around people, dance, and can pivot off of their stuff and use in better tandem and mixture. This is a master of this weapon. Nabushi knows how to make niggas leak. She will break down a lot of people and could skewer, pick at, hit a lot of the soft boards. Everyone here has very acceptable, visible, very much able to crack at and dish out hardcore levels of annoyance and unruly amount of pain, and very much I feel like could effectively outdo the mixed range and armor of Virtuosa and outstyle her. Again, it's just kind of mixed dependent thing, but yeah, I would say that Nabushi should reasonably be there in all of her form, right? So yeah, Orochi though, strong, decent wooden armor, has a metal helmet, as a katana. Yeah, I'll probably say that. I mainly put her to carry over Nabushi in mixed talk because of like the axe mixed argument for the greater wage of mixed greater utilization and capability to cut off the mixed greater's sense of fucking defense that would be in all reality hyper sentiment for a sonic sway dummy doing the most expertise of how to really far range just clock you with the greatest off-putting basically metal parrying and jabbing away, like the thrust and exquisite but also the most undeniably flagrant usage of Nabushi in the case of For Honor and possibly in different real life occasions with Uno Bogeisha or anyone with, what I'm saying, the Yari spear makes this person be undeniably in every conviction, be in multiple different traditions, a high undeniably like splitting at every sore point of a person to where you can very much say that the bullshit, sorry for the mixing on, it's kind of getting late, is able to outdo Hirokiri, but like I said, there's very much as well, like you could say very much that Bushi could really get around, that this is really a tie between who can more outrange and who can close the gap. I see Hirokiri having decent stance to defense with this more larger supreme weapon, even if like the argument there's some weapons like palm axe and all that being bigger. It's just the level of size and magnitude. It's like the halt that the axe is. It's a very effective weapon, and like the size makes a difference between them. I just say that they could cut it off and mix up to where it could be a problem, but you could hyper argue. I just think at that point, then everyone else has either better armor, as much range, and better skill. I say Orochi gets stopped mainly because the axe here is a more effective weapon than the katana, and even with all the armor mix talk, Orochi's different stylistic skills and a lot of things that Orochi does in mixed gameplay, again, given the best good faith, it's not a good thing. Sorry for the case of the yell in the background or what the fuck is going on. Is my mom and all that over here talking with somebody? Okay, thank God. Anyway, but yeah, that's Orochi. Shigoki though is where I think has every sensible argument to be right here, and I'm gonna explain this in depth form. Biggest shit, bigger than an actual Kanabo, decently armored, not fully from head to toe. Head is more, very much visibly open, but as a decent mask, is slow, but even in this slowness, like any sumo wrestler or sumo form of not only counting of mixture of different, history where different occasions where a person that practiced in different aspects of sumo was a very beefcake of unstoppable magnitude, was a boulder of a man, a Thor from God of War level argument of a strong man of Japanese times in the past, and he's someone of that strong samurai institute that was like this, was still very capable and strong. The weaknesses is obviously there's some great openings. He doesn't have a shield, and a lot of mixed argument for how Shigoki fights, again, given the best good faith, would be slugging around a lot of shit. But I think in every sense of the way that because of the greater disparities, the more effective stuff, and the fact that it would actually be the first guy with efficient weaponry to batter down and break down weapons very hardcore, and one great swing from this dude, depending on a different conviction, would clap down on almost everybody, critically wound them, knock them off their feet, and set them up for greater taking. He would be able to batter away at anybody, and a Tuma crack away at anybody's effective standing, making Shigoki outdo. The only way I could see him losing and making a backstep is that Black Prior, right? Might be because of the shield do more, but I could see him literally dismantling that shield with greater effectiveness. And I just feel like these people that are above either 2 armor, greater shield, or greater capabilities to best him, it obviously wouldn't be easily that, it's easier to dominate him. But again, I just see that happening. Kensei with the great long Nodachi, I would put right here. Good wood armor, metal armor, mask, a good weapon, good showcasing the skill, very effective mix-ups and shit. and should just be a greater version of Zanhu, unironically. But yeah, I think that is where he stops. Valkyrie. Yeah, very competitive mixed fight. If you mix argue, you got a greater, only take a mixed weapon to make range, but a better sense of body of armor. But there's an obvious shield and spear is like de facto range and defense. Case of more of weaponry and capability. She has a good helmet. Her hair is decently long and sticking out, so that's technically a con. She's not the most greater heavenly adept armor. Her shield, it's not the most tactically probably good, but there's a lot of different mix-ups she can do with it, and she has a great, indomitable defense, a great pressure, impetuous style of swiftness. She's very capable with that spear, and I would say that she could very effectively get around these people. I think it's just mainly hard occasions, but it's when we get to the more very acceptable, to say a lot more highly capable, armored, strong instance of individuals, to where it gets a lot more easy to best say, right? But then next we have Berserker, who has a mixed contingency against Nuxiv, which you think is a more strong form weapon, but I would say these axes on some Tiki Sobi shit should be a lot more greater and capable. But everyone else, low form armor, not very goodly protected. This is a journeyman, this is just fodder as I've ever seen. Warlord, though, is an actual warlord. I think that he is very good. I think with his very strong shield, even with the mixed weaknesses and his strong sword play, that he should get, I would argue he could be at the top now. I think he replaced Sohei. So he has a very good shield, a good sword. It's wide, it's strong, has a great surface and diameter, a great sense of gravity with everything he got. He has a good helmet, his hair is sticking out, not the best, kind of long beard, so he's a mixed kind of cons. He has a strong sentiment of armor, mix of different chainmail on the inside and out, and the garbs and the leather, even though not being the most sufficient, he has a great mix-up in different cases of ways to counteract the speed, mix up the range of any other person here. And I feel like there's just so many showcases of men like Warlord, actual warlords of his namesake, armor and stancing, and him being a more realistic, prone to be Viking. This is a big, beefy, hulking nigga, right? He should win. Raider, disappointingly so, but most accurate, absolutely garbage in the grand scope, but garbage in the sentiment that he's just really below Medjai. Like, Raider in the Front Lord is obviously superhuman, peak human, basically whole fucking Horlu, but it's not gonna happen here. He's dying by an arrow like anyone else here in Mixed Bag, but he's just terrible in the greater grand scope. His garments not helping. He's just shirtless. He has a strong helmet, and you can say his mixed ponytail beard is a little bit mixed of a con, and his weapon is good, but he can't be any more higher. Like, he would best a lot of his other people because the mixed situation are not as much armored, better weapons, he has better range, but when you have Medjai, that's him a little bit striking, a little bit better. He has a longer form of axe, and is more of a capable individual, and I can maybe see the mixed argument that Raider might be able to push past because of his helmet, but I see Medjai being just objectively a lot more in the grand scope better in every sense of the way. So just I just don't really see the difference. I'm not gonna put obviously Lawbringer here. There's a bunch of reasons for why he should be up here. I'm gonna finish up more on opinions with him, but let's talk about the rest. Peacekeeper should to me sufficiently be like right here, as obviously she has a decent credit of armor. She's a hooded mixed knight, which is not a actual deliberate, definitive, actually knight standing thing. That's not actual warfare thing, right? But she has a solid, case of combo of weapons that she could use in very efficient, cutting, splicing, stabbing, gouging, dominating all the rest of these people from a better, swift, sufficient tangle of different shit. So yeah, she should win right there. Conqueror, though, right, is, I feel like, a mixed take of, like, in formal practice, his armor is not very good. This guy's a homeless mixed prisoner, not really having the best grounds for shit. His shield will make him very capable of fishing. He has a good helm. He has some different garbs. His right arm should be getting cut of circularization. I mean, the chain mixed with the very rusty flail and all that shit's not a very good combo. And even though he would be pretty good, he couldn't mink away at the gritter delivering people. And I would say that his stamina in a lot of ways that Conqueror fights is not the most strong, laying of like actual greater skill, mixed talk and argumentation with some shit. And even though there's a great boast of really whacking away and flinging some great halt in different escapades of fighting, bout, pit for pit, the nigga just doesn't have a great, strong argument to be any more higher. Warden, no, should be easily and effectively, I say, right here, right? Big Law Daddy himself. Strongest arguable sense of armor. A strong, solid, defined weapon, regardless of the character in game, swings it like a bat. It should be very crisp, precise, switchblade in human form. Knight standard 101, but Lawbringer should easily be the strongest For Honor character. Not only does he have the best armor, his armor is tied with a bunch of better argumentation for, in this case, you know what I'm saying, way to be not only an impregnable beast, his armor should be way more sturdy to not only take what Pirate can throw like Warden. He has the most exceptional weapon in the halberd, action, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's so big. He's not the tallest dude, because that would either go to Shigoki or Sohei, but he's very fucking big for what he is. He's a tank. Certified unit. That's my tier list. I think that's pretty agreeable. You might have some different disagreements here and there, different accounting. If you hard disagree, you want to go and debate about it, as always, my Discord is always open, RPKing3124, but I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, Marmy. Let me know if you want me to do more of this shit. I love y'all. Peace out, Marmy.